Good evening from Spain. Um, I just thought this would be quite a broad, open chat about the Philippines. The reason I say it's a broad, open chat because I know, well, I say a few, not many. People have wondered why I still focus on the Philippines and rather than move on to Spain where we are now. Well, we have moved on to Spain where we are now from a separate channel. But it's like the last 2 weeks, we still have stuff ongoing in the Philippines. We've just had fitted for a rental units. We've had a few tenants come and go. We're about to advertise one of our other apartments. So the reality is it's still a very live operation out in the Philippines. We're going to try and get back there this year as well. Although, you know, from my trolling side, they'll be like, Matt, I've got more money than you, blah, blah, blah. You don't have more money than me. I have more expenses. That's the reality. Going back to the Philippines will cost me about £4,000 because it's not one person traveling, it's a family. We're still working on it. We'll get there. But at the same time, we're sort of prioritizing stuff here in Spain. First one being is we want to move to a bigger house. April needs a car because it makes her mobile, which means she's got more opportunities. And pretty much that's settling ourselves in our new country. And this is one of the things I want to say. We already settled in the Philippines, already developed stuff there, and now we're doing it again in Spain. My income in the Philippines is currently around 45,000 pesos a month. We need to get more than that here in Spain. But I just want to point out, this is one of the things that these guys do not even want to focus on, is the reality. The reality is we funded our life in the Philippines. We already own property in the Philippines. We already have apartments rented out in the Philippines. And we already have a life there. But coming to Europe means a new country, new location, new house, new setup. And that's what we're working on. It doesn't happen overnight, and that's just the reality of life. You've got to work at it. It's not given to you on a silver platter. You've got to go out there and earn it and bring it in. But at the same time, tonight I've been proactively looking for contracts. I've had some. I mean, the bizarre thing is, I emailed a company in the UK about some work, then some stuff's coming from the Middle East. Literally tonight in the last couple of hours. The stuff always coming through the door. It's just whether it's stuff I want to do, whether it's something I need to leave the house for. But ultimately, you do what you need to do. And this sort of moves back onto the Philippines side. Because if you're a transient expat, then coming into the Philippines, living there, they're making money overseas and taking it back to the Philippines can be quite a good lifestyle. It really can, because you can avoid tax for a start. What do you mean? Well, in the Middle East, a lot of places don't pay any tax whatsoever. So if you're paid at the end of the week in cash or whatever you want, it's tax-free. That means that basically you're tax-free, which is another 30% on your income. But in reality, it's much more than that, because the difference is in the West, is just going to work and doing day-to-day stuff. In the Middle East, it's yours. It's in your pocket. That amount you agreed is your amount. So there's often a lot more to be made. So being a transient expat in the Philippines, it can be a very good, lucrative way of keeping your money offshore. The other side of this being that I do think that things in the Philippines really have not changed in a long period of time. And it's not me being negative. I'm just talking about the fact when people go, oh, you're not in the Philippines now, things have changed. Not that much. I mean, you go back to stuff that was written in 2005 or even older, you'll find not a lot has changed. Not to do with relationships, not to do with day-to-day stuff. It really has not. All that's changed is the prices. And even then, it's sort of relative to costs. So, Johnny Fanta. Hi, Matt. How did April become so good at Spanish? I love your videos. I watch them every day. Thanks for supporting the channel. The reason April's good at Spanish is in Bisaya, which is the Visayas dialect. A lot of the words are really the same. Numbers are the same. Days of the week are the same. Months are the same. So there's already a structure there, which is very quick to learn, because if you're used to, it's like basically if you'd left primary school already understanding what your people were saying and going on to secondary school, I would say that's probably it. She's already started at a level which was a communication level, where myself, I'm starting at a level where I don't speak any Spanish. So I'm starting with trying to understand where the language comes from, trying to develop around Latin and stuff, which may actually be a complete failure at some point, because some of this stuff does not make sense. I know Jaime has brought this up, which in English is Jamie. The fact that things like Duolingo often aren't correct. And he's right, because it isn't. Because Latin American, in the sense of, Latin American Spanish, in the sense of places like Brazil, whatever, they have very different languages in many forms. But even in Spain, it is not straightforward. You have Valencian, you have, well, I don't know how many languages are spoken here. Some of these are quite complex because you can have a French influence if you're up near the mountains, etc. But some of it, what was that? Where's Sally's language? Sally's on the West Coast, so she has another language completely. The language can be quite complicated if you go regionally, and the politics here are quite strong internally. You know, like you find a lot of the world politics are like now Trump vs North Korea, that sort of stuff. In Spain, it is normally Valencia vs Madrid, and people want their own identity and stuff. The politics are more internal, which I think is good, because it means there's less wars around the world. People are busy fighting each other internally over their identities and stuff, and I think that's a good thing. Hi Wes, how's it going? Yeah, yeah, April did all right in the Spanish. She's doing really well on it. I'm proud of her on that. For me, I'm still struggling with it, but it's getting there. I'm surprised how many words I actually know. The big problem you have is like different. I would say in English it's broken down more. In Spanish, you can have abbreviations of the same word or different forms of the same word. For example, like drink and drank are very similar. Although obviously in English it makes sense, drink and drank. But depending on how the sentence is structured, it's written completely different. There's a lot of broad spectrum of what makes sense, and that's what's hard. What I've learned is not to try and think, well, how does that make sense, but just accept it, because it's a bit like drink and drank. You know, what's the difference if you sit there and try to understand it? If it wasn't your first language, it becomes too complicated. But if you turn around and just go, well, drink is just drinking, and drank is you drank it, That's it. It's to do with the tenses. I can work with that. Prairie Mark, hi Matt. Just logged on. Hey, nice to see you. How you doing? Um, so yeah, but April Spanish is pretty good, and it will continue to be good. And that's one of the things I will say about Messiah. There's a lot of Spanish dialect in there, but even down in Davao, there is some actually speak Spanish, proper Spanish. So for them coming to Spain, it's probably not a lot of transition because they're already fluent in Spanish anyway. Um, but one of the big things in this area is it's multicultural anyway, but it's really good for April to speak Spanish because she's already sort of ingrained in the local community. She's part of the local community already, and now able to get a bit more mobile and stuff. April goes on the bus and takes the kids down to the art school for this week, and starting to get more familiar with hopping on the bus by herself and stuff. She's getting her independence. And I know some expats will go, "Oh my God, you're letting your wife do what she wants." You know what? I don't have a bird in a cage. I have a wife. My wife can do what she likes. At the end of the day, she don't stop me doing what I want. I don't stop her doing what she wants. And as long as everybody's happy, who cares? That's the ultimate goal here. Fanta, hi Matt. I love watching your daily videos, as I hope to move to Torrevieja someday, but not until I'm at a B2 level in Spanish. I've been visiting Torrevieja for the last 10 years. Yeah, I'll be honest with you, if you spend more time in Spain, you'll learn it faster. I mean, the big problem I have is I work as well. Otherwise, if for example I took a year out and was doing nothing else, I would go and sit in the cafe at the end of the road and become very close friends with some of the older Spanish people. And I'd be fluent in Spanish in probably 6 months because they would sit there all day speaking to me in Spanish and correcting me. And you become very quick in becoming fluent because it's fluid. You know, it's not structured like a school book. It's structured in a sense that you're speaking in phrases that you're using. Um, it's a bit like when I studied mathematics. I did okay at mathematics, but it was when I left school, I started to understand the relationship between real world experiences that it sort of becomes so fluid and so quick for calculations. Working out square meters of tiles, buildings, brickwork, and everything else, because the equations had a real world connection. Where in school they go, if you left at 5:45 on a train to whatever, and the other train was coming past 5 miles an hour, at what time would the train hit your train station? It doesn't make any sense. You know, they're trying to introduce real world scenarios that don't actually relate to your real world life. And that's where it becomes too complicated because it just doesn't make any sense. It's a real scenario for maybe a teacher that's thinking, I'm sat in London train station and I'm going to Manchester. I've got one train going this way, and my train's due at this time. So what time does it arrive? But these are school kids. It doesn't connect in that way. And I think that's it. A lot of it is got to be connected to real world experiences. Like we start asking, okay, how do I order a coffee? A cafe con leche. Um, like cafe con leche, por favor. It's like coffee with milk, please. Very simple stuff, but it's got a real world connection. And this is where I think it's important that, like you're saying, Johnny Fanta, if you want to move here, I'll tell you now, if you moved here and started ordering your coffee in the morning and getting your pan, your bread, pan, and started knowing the different types of bread and things like that, you would learn it much faster. You really would, because you're embracing the culture. Yeah, Johnny Fante, maths doesn't make sense, but it makes people think and work things out. Yes, but if you introduce real world experiences, it's like me. My wife will tell you, I work out calculations in my head like instantly because I mean I do a lot of auditing work, so a lot of stuff's just natural to me. I just work out the equations without even thinking about it because it's just stuff I do. You know, how many tiles does a room take? And I can walk in a room and like this room now, I can work out the size of the room and I can tell you how many tiles I need on the floor, how many bags of cement, because I work in construction and renovations and maintenance. So I just know that stuff. I don't even have to think about it. But at the same time, when people go, how the hell did you know that? You've got like two spare. It's like, yeah, because when you cut the edges, you've got enough to go around the edges. And if you break a tile, there's two spare. You know, it's just stuff you work out over time, but it just becomes in your head, it's just natural. You're not even thinking about it. And that's the thing. With my Spanish, the stuff I talk about in my other channel where I'm going, what's this? Is I'm not actually trying to convert it from English to Spanish. It's the fact that I already know the words in Spanish. I'm just thinking, okay, you know, like you just go, he'll go, you know, for like, you know, Jews and things like that. I already know what it is. I'm not asking myself in my head in a way that converts it from one language to another. It's already become natural. And that's what I'm saying. When you do it on a daily basis, it becomes natural. Willie Stroker, hi Matt, morning from West Australia. How's it going? I bet it's warm there at this time of year, isn't it? Surely. You having a good day? Is it warm there? So yeah, I would say I mean this goes for any language. If you get in the Philippines, one of the things you want to learn a local dialect, whether it's Bisaya, Tagalog or whatever. One of the things I did is I basically ran our store, a little sari-sari store, and you'll get the knock knock, ayo, and people ask for like matches, which is like phosphorus, which is obviously phosphorus, like in the sense of the chemical fire. So phosphoro is like matches, and some of the stuff is a bit strange because they use brand names like Bear Brand for some of the washing powder, Colgate for uh, toothpaste and stuff like that, because there's words missing from the vocabulary. Um, but the thing is, when you're sat there, you start to learn the language because there's nobody helping you. Somebody's gone, I want, in Spanish, quiero, you know, I want. Um, and it'll be whatever it was. So you'll get like the coin go tap tap tap, ayo, which is like knock knock, and then they'll go fosforo, you know, lebran, um, grande, you know, they're talking grande is big, big beer. Um, you start to develop your language skills because people are asking you and standing there going, give it to me. And that's one of the best ways to do it. It's being forced onto the corner of going, I want this, give it to me. And that's the way I recommend learning it, is forcing yourself into it. Pray remark, Matt, do you get a charge or a good feeling out of moving to a new culture with a new language, or does it feel like a burden? I love it. I love it. I've been in the Middle East, and I spent many times in many countries. I spent most of my life in many countries. Uh, Even like in the Middle East, I was trying to learn Arabic off the guys locally. So, you know, like we get, you know, like people are used to like things like God willing, you know, and people like Ishala and Salum alaikum, alaikum salum. And you're even going to the border. because I have to renew my visa on the border. The guy, my driver, I'm like, teach me some Arabic on the way, and you'd be like, this is what the road's called. This we are going to the border, and this would be, because the sounds are very different, because they have a very in their accent. So you'll be like, ha, you're trying to learn the way they say it. But I'll be honest with you, a lot of the Arabic guys don't want to teach you. In Spain, people love to teach you. French, they love to teach you. The only place I found difficult was in the Middle East, where people don't want to actually teach you Arabic. I found that a bit bizarre. The guys that I know just didn't want you. It's as if they didn't want you to understand too much. I don't know why. I think it's one of those things where they put up with you because they need you, in the sense that they hate the West, but they need the engineers, etc. So not a lot you can do about it. It's just the way of the world. But yeah, Arabic is something I'd be interested in learning as well. I do like languages. I love the connection between different languages as well, where you can find, like, even in like Cebuano and Tagalog, you will find some Hindi, because of the connections between what is, I suppose, or was India and the Philippines. In the same way, you will find a lot of Chinese in the same, like, even down to things like the, because obviously there's a lot of things like dim sum, but one of the big things in the Philippines is the embryo in the egg, but it's actually Chinese, it's not Filipino. So there's a lot of stuff which is being embraced by the Philippines and is often seen as being Filipino, but it's actually come from other cultures. That stuff interests me. I mean, one of the things I will say about things like Syria and places like that, it saddens me because these are places I want to visit. This is where I want to see where the Egyptian culture had extended into, like, what would be the Middle East now, and seeing the historical stuff relating to these countries that are tearing themselves apart right now, because it fascinates me. It fascinates me. It fascinates me also when you find the connection with words, that they have a bigger meaning, or it started off with something so simple, but it's developed into something more complex, because it's finding the root of some of the words and phrases that have been developed through history. Yeah, I love it. That's, I hope that answers your question, Mark, Prairie Mark. I know I've gone on a bit there, but yeah, I love it. I love the understanding. I love not just words, but phrases and where they come from culturally. And like I said, Spain, I'm learning a new language. Is it a downside? The answer is no. It does make it harder to find work, but at the same time, I'm learning something new. So, like anything in life, you could either say, down or it's building you up. The fact is, once I'm fluent in Spanish, it also creates this other environment where I'm fluent in English and Spanish, which is one of the big things here in Spain. If you can do both, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of jobs where the Spanish struggle to get some of these jobs because they don't speak English, yet they may even be qualified as a doctor, a psychiatrist, um, a pharmacist, or whatever. But the thing that is their stumbling block is the language. English, it holds them back because they have to have a certain ability to understand English. Uh, Sorry, Johnny Fanta. Sorry, Matt. The streaming's gone on my tablet. We'll watch tomorrow. No worries, mate. Have a great evening. Yeah, but I think that's the thing. If you're going to move to another country, you need to embrace what the other country has to offer. I do think too many people request too much from a country. They shouldn't do. I mean, I know a lot of guys go to the Philippines wanting um, things to be as good as they are back where they come from, but at the same time, don't really want to spend the same amount of money, expecting the same sort of quality of service, etc. Um, in all honesty, why do they expect things to be as good as that? You know, it just baffles me because I don't knock the Philippines. The Philippines is what it is. And I know Jaime brought it up today about the fact that I call it 2.0, you know, Spain's Philippines 2.0. And it's not knocking the Philippines or Spain. It's turning around and saying, you know what, it could be like Spain if it got rid of its pollution, if it invested more in infrastructure, if it developed its tourism. That's what would change the country in a very positive way. It's not knocking the infrastructure. It's not knocking Spain. We're not talking historical reasons. We're not talking sort of tries to say Spain's not as good or whatever. It's saying that the Philippines could improve considerably by simply turning around and saying we could be like that. We could have clean beaches. We could get rid of our pollution. We could improve our waste management, our sewers, our infrastructure, our power, our internet, in many places. It's not impossible. It really isn't. Prairie Mark, yes, I agree. The folks I meet in Cebu that think the Filipinos should become like them are the most unhappy. Yeah, I went to the Philippines sort of randomly. It wasn't really a planned thing. It was a case of a friend of mine was on a dating website, and I was around there on a Saturday afternoon, and he said he'd spent like he bought a month's subscription or something, and he hadn't had any views or anything. So I looked at it, and I altered his subscription, and you know, his profile and his name and stuff to try and make it more desirable, should I say. And there was this woman appeared around the side of the screen, which is now that's now my wife April. But in her office, three of the women, because my wife and two of the other office girls there, had decided they had enough with their boyfriends and that sort of thing. So they'd put themselves on the same on the website to say, "I'm not happy," and you know they decided they want to find a foreign husband and just thought, try it, see what happens, and we connected. Um, and that's the reality of it, and that's the thing. You need to understand that moving to another country doesn't fix your problems. A lot of the time, fixing your problems is about changing the way you are as a person. Um, Myself, I'm generally happy 9 times out of 10. You know, at the end of the day, um, nothing really bothers me these days. You know, even with the trolling crap that's been going on for a while, I don't even think about it. It doesn't even bother me. It doesn't even ever. Um, and I think that's it. Some of these guys go there wanting a better lifestyle. They want X, Y, Z, but don't factor in the fact that it's a third world country. But also, they're not paying the same amount of money. Infrastructure always costs money, and that's the reality. Daniel Mills, I'm out. Have you ever done Thailand? No, I haven't been to Thailand yet. I've got some Thai students I've taught English to, and they're nice students. But I haven't been to the country itself. But I have heard that um, language barrier can be a bit of a problem, but it's far cheaper than the Philippines. So there's a bit of a balance in there, I suppose. Uh, Prairie Mark, a lot of the Brits I talk and see with like the Filipinos, but they dislike the Spanish influence. That's just arrogance. That's no other word for it. Get the same with some of the expats here in Spain. I mean, at the end of the day, I do not dislike um, people having their own cultures, their own beliefs, etc. If anything, I probably have a dislike for people that assume being British gives them the right to excessively influence other countries. My viewpoint is live and let live. If you're in somebody else's country, what gives you the right to dictate to them what they're doing and what's right and what's wrong? I do find the Philippines, some of the stuff, I do sit back and go, don't know why they're doing it. Doesn't give me a right to change it though, as long as it's not costing me money. But I do understand where you're coming from. Prairie Mark, isn't that a characteristic? Characteristic. All right. You caught me there a long time, right? Are Brits being arrogant? Characteristic. Not all Brits. That's the same thing. See, that's the thing. This is not based on everybody. It depends who you talk to, but I do find that you will find some people are very arrogant in their beliefs and thoughts on how people should live, how people should be, how people should treat them. But at the same time, they do not look in the mirror and see how they treat others, which is the important bit, because I have got through life by understanding it's not about how people treat me, it's how I treat them that influences whatever goes on. It's not all Brits, and I would say that I can understand where you're coming from, but I know many a Brit that's smart enough to understand that the British Empire was in history. It's not today. Yeah, as Perry Marx says, we are guests there. Exactly. We just treat people as we want. Treat people how you want to be treated, and generally find that works right across the board. Daniel Mills, well worth considering that. I go over several times a year. Yeah. See, the thing is, for me, we're settled in Spain, but yeah, it's worth having a look at. Certainly. For us, we're right in Spain now. You know, we're solid foot in Europe. I was talking to my wife earlier because all going well this year. I think we might be in Germany for Christmas to do the winter fairs. It's something I love. I spent a lot of my childhood in Germany. I think it's an amazing place for the winter time. So doing the winter fest there, I would love it. I know the kids would love it. The snow, they've got the right buildings. You know, it's something you got to experience. You know, it's once you experience it, you're like, I know where you're coming from. Yeah, I understand this. But in my childhood, I remember like the old wooden shutters and all that sort of stuff, and it's just like I love that about Germany. It's the same as Spain. They have kept history alive. They haven't over commercialized it. You know, like here in Spain, we have so many religious things going on. And I'm not religious, but I respect the fact they have managed to keep their religion and cultures alive. That's what's made this important. The Philippines, I go to the mass on the run up to Christmas. We get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We go to the church. We listen to the mass, and there's probably 2,000 people there. And the fact that it's all in Cebuano, and There's just this gathering there makes it important, you know, because for me, religion doesn't really mean anything. But I respect other people's religion, and the fact that a large community does this together is the important factor. And I think in the West, a lot of this stuff is being lost, and this is, you know, that I think we're missing some of that stuff, because even if we're not religious, it's just a collective thing, you know. Because I find too much goes on where people don't even talk to their neighbors and stuff anymore. I think it's good to have stuff that revolves around the community, good or bad, as long as the community functions together. Amelia Segado, hello Matt. Hola Matt. Hola, how's it going? David Barr, good evening. Good evening, mate. How's it going? Yeah, Prairie Mark. Yes, they compare Hong Kong with Venezuela and say, look at how good of an influence the Brits have had, how bad the Spanish influence. It's it's all. See, the thing is, we're dealing with the Brexit stuff here in Spain at the moment, and it's the same nonsense. It's they only see it from one perspective, and that's their own. They have no connection with anything beyond themselves. Um, and I hear it, and I just go, okay, whatever, and just walk on. You cannot change their viewpoints. They're locked into it in such a way that they sit there all smug and happy. And then when you turn around and disembowel it and show that it's just that's a nonsense and exploitation and all this sort of stuff more. So for me, I just say, I'm not even going to get into this conversation. You just like, whatever, you know. Believe what you want to believe. You know, at the end of the day, the British Empire manipulated the world to suit itself, but those days are gone. You know, they're still trying to be bigger than it is. It still has a lot of influence, but it's nowhere near as big as it once was. Um, but I think that's the important thing. Is a lot of people need to understand that for you, me, and the majority of people we know, we cannot change these things anyway. There's no point getting dragged into these conversations. You know, I've had people going, how great Hong Kong was under British rule and stuff, and I'm just like, depends how you look at it. Like anything, it depends how you look at it. Um, and it's not me knocking it, saying, well, what, you only said this? Well, I'm not just going to argue about it. I'm not interested. I think it is what it is. This is you, yeah, like you said, Prairie Mark. You can't change an old alcoholic Brit who knows everything. That's it. You cannot change their because they are set in their ways. And I mean, I know I come from a military family, so we used to have the national anthem quite regular. It was drummed into us at school. We used to have it at the end of the TV shows on the evening, that sort of stuff. Um, I just say I'm nobody's servant. I just leave it at that. I'm nobody's servant. These guys choose to be a servant of somebody that would not even recognize them as a human being on their same level. That's the bizarre thing because they think they're a better species almost. But the reality is, what they think they are, the people that are in that financial and royal stature would squash them like a bug. They don't even see them as important. And that's the reality. That is the reality. I remember a friend of mine did a military show, and there was a shortage of people at the show, so he had to pretend to be more than one person, and he talked to Prince Edward. This one vehicle, 7 vehicles down, and Prince Edward had the same conversation with him 7 vehicles down and didn't even recognize him. They spoke to him 5 minutes earlier. I think that pretty much sums that up. Yeah, we're not important. We're the pawns on the game. We are the pawns on the chessboard. We're just not important to these people in any form. There's no point getting into their games, and that 90% of the politics that goes on in this world is them playing off me and you against each other and everybody else, so they can do whatever they like. And that's just the reality of the world today, and it has been throughout history. For me, I just go, I'm not getting into the argument. Fine. If that's what you want to believe, that's fine. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. Everyone's entitled to what they believe. I'm not trying to change that in anybody, because everyone has a right to decide what they want to do. So, because as soon as I start trying to change somebody's beliefs, then that makes me as bad as somebody that sold them that belief in the first place. So for me, I just turn around and say, be what makes you happy. That's it. Doesn't matter. Gone off on a tangent a bit there. Back on the Philippines. Yeah, Philippines business, I suppose, the next one. A lot of people will say it's impossible to make money in the Philippines. Reality is, you can make money in the Philippines. The thing is, you have to understand the local market. The reality is, one business will not make you a millionaire, even a Philippine millionaire. You may need to get the first business model working, then replicate it. It's a bit like, say, in the UK, getting a McDonald's franchise. You get your first one, you learn the business, you get it working, you make a lot of money, and then you buy another one because it's already guaranteed money. And then you do that works well, and you do another one. That's the best way to do a Philippines business, is you simply get one business model working, don't invest heavily in one business, but simply get something that works, expand it, develop it, and once it gets to a certain level, it starts making some serious money, open another one. When that's up and running, open another one. And just keep it flowing. Like any other country, you can franchise them out and you can develop it and you can make it your own. You can move away from buying from suppliers to supplying yourself. Or you can get suppliers supplying you at a special rate, then selling it on to franchisees. But there is certainly money in the Philippines, especially around food. The food market is a bit like here in Spain. People eat out a lot more. Well, I say that. I've been to the US. People eat out a lot more in the US than they do in the UK. But people eat generally a lot of their financial budget in the Philippines and also in Spain. And those markets are primed for getting something different. What you need to do is up to you, but my personal viewpoint is locking into local ingredients aren't too difficult to source, but trying to do stuff that can't be replicated by the locals. For example, opening a bakery. I've heard a couple of people failed at bakeries. I question why they failed, because the bakery is one of those businesses that everybody uses. Because one of the problems I've seen with people over the years is they buy a business and just go, it's going to be a source of income. But they haven't even set the bloody thing up yet. They want to pay in them, yet they haven't even earned their first peso yet, and they want to pay out. Never works. Wouldn't work in the West. Why would it work in the Philippines? In the same way, opening a business without enough budget. it ain't going to survive, because you can, if you're paying rent or something else, you may find that it just doesn't make it financially viable because you haven't invested enough at day one. Reasons that businesses fail, and I'll tell you what, you'll get these guys go that they failed in business, but it's the Philippines' fault. It's never their fault. The reality is, it is their bloody fault because they didn't know how to run a business. It's a bit like the asset stuff I do. I do a lot of stuff on spreadsheets and things. It's difficult to make it busy all the time. But like last year, for 6 months, I didn't really have any work come through. And then I got 10 months worth of work in one go relating to the NHS. Right now, I've sort of started applying for other work. And tonight, I've just had a contract come through from the Middle East. It's not a guaranteed income. So if I sat there and go, well, I need X amount and I know it pays this per week or whatever, it's only based on knowing that that money is coming in every single week. But in reality, what should actually happen is going, I can't guarantee that every week. So I need to diversify and say maybe doing English teaching or other bits and pieces that can fit around work contracts that come in to make sure it works all year round. But many people don't adapt the business to make it financially viable. And that's the reality. That is the reality. The business is either too small, they don't diversify, or they invest too much in something with an expectation it's going to make way more than it possibly can. And ultimately, who's to blame? It's never the bloody expat that did it. It's always the brother-in-law. It's always the wife. It's always the bloody business just wouldn't work, or corruption, or something else. Ultimately, it's everybody else's fault. Reality is, though, it's the expat's fault. Business, don't get into one. If you do understand business, spend time to understand the locals and how everybody works locally, because you find things like you order X from a supplier, when you go, well, I want twice as much, they increase the price. And you're thinking, well, why the hell's that work? Because I'm used to, when I increase it, I get a deduction in price, not an increase in price. Welcome to the Philippines. And it's that sort of stuff. In that case, supplier, what do you find a second supplier? The answer is, you should add 2 suppliers at day one anyway. Probably 4, just in case. Yeah, businesses work, pretty much everything works. It's all about how you set yourself up. I'll get onto that now. I've got a couple of tenants leaving, in the sense that we've got a guy over from Portugal at the moment, so his apartment's going to be up for rent in the next, I think, 8 weeks, because he comes over every single year, but he rents for like 8 to 10 weeks at a time. So that apartment's going to come available. We also had somebody move in with their sister recently, so that apartment's come available because the couple that was in there up until 2 days ago also moved out, because he's going back to, I think it's Shanghai. The missus is Filipino, but the husband, boyfriend or whatever, is Chinese, so he's going back to China. Also, his apartment rentals work in the Philippines. The reason being is, you can have condos in specific areas and they'll make good money. But you have condos in the wrong area, it costs you a lot of money because there's nobody that can afford to rent it out, and the businesses in the area can't support it. My view on things is quite simply, there's a lot of properties and land that you could buy yourself. I spent about 250,000 pesos per unit, and my recovery on it at the moment is about 6,000 pesos. 6,000 pesos per unit, so per month. I could increase that, but for me, I'd rather just have long-term tenants with no hassles. But if you did the maths, you're talking a return of about, what's that? About 72,000 pesos a year per unit. Deduct that from the 250,000, you'll get your payback time, so you can work out how much it costs. It is viable to do these types of things, because the land's expensive, but at the same time, construction is fairly cheap. So I just want to throw that in the mix as well. We've got some apartments coming up available, but also it's a good little business investment. Low hassles. And as a business, if you're not making any good money, you can also reduce it until you actually fill your apartments, and that's it. You know, at the end of the day, you'll always make money out of it. It just gives you a longer payback time. Yeah, I'll throw that in the mix. Anybody want to ask something? Yeah, feel free to ask a question. It's all a bit quiet. If there's not a lot else to ask, I'll cut it off in a second. But I just thought I'd do a chat tonight, see how everybody's going, throw it out there, see what anybody wants to discuss. But is the Philippines still a place I would live? The answer is yes. I love the Philippines. I mean, at the end of the day, being here in Spain is great, family-wise, etc. But I do also love the Philippines. I love the freedom I get on the road with my motorbike, that sort of stuff. It's all good. Yeah, there you go, David Barr. We just found a piece of 2.8 hectares land in Iloilo for 2.5 million pesos. The other thing is, you'll be able to talk that price down. I can guarantee that. You probably get it for 2 million. A lot of the prices advertised, you can knock them down. The property I bought, they wanted over 2 million for. I bought it for 1.2 million because I offered them about 800,000. They went no, went away for a month and come back and said we take 1.2, and then we just bought it. But they wanted over 2 million for it, and I'll be honest, if I just bought the land, did nothing with it, it's actually worth 3 million. But now it's actually apartments and stuff. I wouldn't sell it. Let's just say that it's easy money. You know, you got regular income in there without having to do anything for it. It's crazy because I know, give it 10, 15 years, it'll be 15 million. Because there's been other properties along the main road there that have gone from 2 to 4 million and a 15 to 20 million purely because they opened a mall or something next to it. That's just the way it is. Welcome to the Philippines. Yeah, David Barr, definitely that was our way of thinking. I told my wife that I insist on clean water and air off grid with enough room that the roosters and barking dogs don't drive me nuts. Yeah, that does take a bit of moving around to get away from it. But yeah, the bit of distance, it's always good. We have a lot in the mountains as well, but we still struggle to get away from the Videoke. Videoke seems to carry for miles. But anyway, guys, it's been nice chatting. I'm going to head off to bed. It's already 3 a.m. and we're off for Japanese food tomorrow. Off to a nice Japanese restaurant in Torrevieja. So everyone have a great day, great evening, or great morning, and take it easy, guys. And thanks for watching. I appreciate it. if I can find where I close the window. That's one thing I will say about the Mac. I do struggle to find where it hides half my windows. Take it easy, guys.